What's up everybody, Bloomov here. Beta 4 version 1.0 of course has just been released by the team working on Long War of the Chosen. So I thought, let's have a look at the patch notes. Problem is that I thought I might want to do that rather quickly. I don't know if that's possible because we've got 21 pages of patch notes. First bad news for us is of course you should start a new campaign because if you're playing prior to dev build 26, of course you won't be able to adapt your campaign. I was playing dev build 25, so that's why I feel the need to start a new campaign. We'll go through the most important things, but I'll try to really summarize things that surprised me as I was checking the notes. But of course, remember, I'm not 100% sure what things are new. If I point out something that has already been an element of previous dev builds, please ignore that. We're going to be talking about the Chosen, the Lost faction heroes, the old classes and new perks, missions and things that relate to the campaign, and of course there will be a mix of different things. Chosen will now be enabled by default, so you don't need to activate them before you start your campaign. They are now guaranteed to appear on specific missions, so Intel Raid, Supply Convoy, Recruit Raid, Heaven Defense, Retaliations, Chosen Avenger Defense, which makes sense of course, and Golden Path story missions. Let's get into the real stuff. I had seen some footage from Dev Build 26. The Chosen were kidnapping people at a distance at will, which seemed a little BS. Now, it's a 2 action point and they will not leave when they've done it, but at least when they kidnap one of your troops, they are not going to be able to do anything else on the same turn, which at least it's fair. But definitely one thing that the devs did with this patch is to make sure that a lot of our troopers will be kidnapped. I think it's going to be impossible to avoid that. Once the Chosen start showing up, we will see a lot of troopers kidnapped. But I think there's something later on that might make that a bit easier to swallow if you want. Not so sure about this. If a Chosen is on the field, troopers will not be able to die straight away. They will always bleed. I think it's too much of an alteration. I understand why you're doing it. If Advent and the aliens are going around killing XCOM, then the Chosen won't have any way of kidnapping troopers. But if the aliens are killing so many of your troops, then probably the fact that there's no bleeding out troopers on the field to be kidnapped doesn't make much difference, because your campaign is probably going downhill anyway. This is something that I've seen a lot. I know that this is happening already. My only issue is that I've seen the Hunter being basically gang raped by XCOM because he's simply too close to our troops. No longer disable reinforcements. That might be a bit too much, but we'll see of course. Primary actions, that's interesting. It says here, those reactions are only limited to moving and combat readiness. My problem with this is that, just gonna jump to the assassin a second. Her primary action is now a move towards the closest target, followed by a slash if she's next to a target. But wait a second, if I, for example, attack Chosen from the next side, her reaction might definitely be slash me back. That would be an attack, so as a reaction, I don't know whether this is still true. Anyway, staying on the assassin, she only uses Vanishing Wind in rare situation. That's an annoying skill, so honestly, not bad. Her sword attacks no longer blocked by combatives, honestly, seems fair, because she's supposed to be a beast. Bloodthirst grants a stackable flat damage boost that is cleared when the Chosen captures a unit. This might push some commanders into thinking, well, you know what, I'll just let the bitch capture one of my soldiers. That's gonna happen. Gain slash, of course, we've mentioned it before, but I think it's fair, because if a shinobi has slash, I don't see why the assassin shouldn't have it. The Hunter gains low profile and ready for anything, which I find particularly scary. Mostly because, of course, low profile means he's always gonna be in full cover and high ground, because he's always grappling to high ground. It's gonna be hard to hit this guy. Finally, the Warlock, no longer neutered by Mind Shield, and the Warlock was basically never a problem, which I don't know if it's fair. Mind Control cooldown increased by 1. That seems fair, because otherwise they were basically doing it every other turn. What's interesting about the Lost and what they've done with them, basically there's going to be fewer of them, but they will scale with alert level. Honestly, 14 mobility is a lot. Those mofos were already scooting around maps like crazy before, so yeah, that's scary. Commanders all over the world were using the Lost as an ally. I always thought it was a bit of an oversight on Firax's part. Everything I've seen of the Lost in Long War of the Chosen, I haven't really seen this. Now I hope that this is like, now finally it's gonna be like this. About faction heroes, I think that one of the biggest things the devs of Long War of the Chosen have tackled is reworking the faction heroes. I don't know if you play Vanilla. I remember Reapers in Vanilla. They could just solo missions all the time, and I definitely like what they've done, reworking them significantly in order to make them not copies of other classes like Reapers and Shinobis, or again Templars and Shinobis, and also to make them interesting to play, to make them fun to play. The Reapers, I believe, are those that have been changed most significantly since the beginning of the project. I'll tell you a little bit of what I understand of the Reaper's new mechanic. It's not a class that has concealment. Instead, it gets Shadow, which grants a cloak for 2 turns. It also increases, if I remember correctly, the mobility of the unit. Works in synergy with knives that have replaced Claymore. They were kind of fun to play, but honestly, they were a little bit broken. Remote Start is another perk that is incredibly fun to play, and of course they had to nerf it because it was simply too good before. So I think they made it like one single charge, or it's got a cooldown, I don't remember. Anyway, it's in the random abilities, the XCOM pool of random abilities. I don't like that because it means that it is likely that you won't get it. And a Reaper without Remote Start, even if you want to make it more like a secondary thing, like it's not going to double the range of the explosion or double the damage, but I think Reapers should have Remote Start. I found interesting what they've done with the vector rifle, because it's now like a bit like more the strike rifle from Long War 1, in which you can use quad sight but with some penalties, and it's got a boost to aim, so quite interesting, definitely. Skirmishers are more or less the same as what we played. It's supposed to be a very mobile unit that will save your ass in many situations because it's able to grapple somewhere, take a shot at a flanked unit, and because they have hit and run, you can then of course run to cover. And I've done that probably 5 or 6 times with Jester, my skirmisher, in Pain, just a few missions. So definitely a fun unit. Templars. This is my summary of what Templars are gonna be. Basically a tank. So instead of carrying auto pistols, they will have a shield. But you can still give them auto pistols in their pistol slot, which, remember, of course, it's been added as default. Every unit will have a pistol slot. I'll add Psyops to this group of faction heroes simply because they fit better. This has been true for a lot of time, actually, and I think it's right. I will confess to basically having always resorted to this strategy to deal with the sectopods, the gatekeeper. I mean, those units are supposed to be like bosses. Fuse is now free action, one of the most fun perks to use. Bastion is one of the most interesting perks in the game. The second you got a priest with Bastion in a group of 8, that pod was unbeatable. We'll read something about Bastion later and we might come back to it. I just think that Bastion is a very, very controversial perk. Alright, let's talk about some of the old classes and some of the new perks that have been added to the perk pools. I like the fact that they're shaking things up constantly. It keeps the game and the mod fresh. They are working on reducing the number of useless stuff you get. Walkfire is probably gonna be the best perk in the game from patch 4.1. It does more damage and it doesn't have cooldown, so it's gonna be a very good one. Interference also becomes more interesting, and I think this plays into a trend of making a lot of interesting perks, make them free action simply because players will then use them instead of ignoring them. I'm thinking also of scanning protocol is now a free action. That's very good. Alright, let's talk about what changes have been made to missions and campaigns more generally. You remember we said the Chosen will now be able to kidnap our soldiers, our down troopers, much more frequently, much more easily. 3 captured soldiers can be awarded for a single jailbreak mission. I think this is the stick and the carrot. Of course, the kidnapped soldiers being the stick, and the carrot is the fact that we can get them back much more frequent, much more easily. Supply raids and troop columns, if under-infiltrated, will now boost the enemies on the map. Honestly, I would never go for a supply raid or a troop column with that kind of infiltration time. Let's say a prayer for the rainbow pod, because it's dead. We'll never see a rainbow pod anymore. HQ assault and story missions might still have those. Anyway, on supply raids and troop columns, they're not gonna be there anymore. 5 units is the limit for Advent. Recruit raid rebels are now armed, making the recruit retaliation mission sort of more manageable. The defend Haven mission, the one which has only reinforcements, is going to change a little bit, because now we'll have from turn 4, which can be reduced by alert level, we'll see much tougher reinforcements. So the message here is get out as soon as possible. Chosen Avenger defense will now support much stronger enemies. You cannot destroy the gun placement simply by shooting at them. You will need to set X4 charges. So basically like the destroy the Advent Monument mission. Speaking of the campaign on a more general level, the Resistance Ring and the entire cover option system, they have reworked it completely. What I understood, they don't want commanders to abuse the cover option system. They want it to be an option. They want it to be a high risk, possibly a decent, good reward. You want to think twice before you send people. The mission that we get if we get ambushed is different. We have 12 hours to send a team of 4, which will deploy on the opposite side of the map from the soldiers that have been ambushed. And of course it's up to us to try and save them. So it's probably gonna feel a little bit like a supply convoy retaliation. Love that. Now, let's talk about some miscellaneous things. First of all, equipment. Now, not much to say here. I just wanted to talk about those auto pistols. It's basically a new category of weapons. It goes in the pistol slot. It's got lower base damage than a pistol, but higher crit damage, 40% base crit chance. It's also got shorter range. SMGs will now give +2 mobility instead of +3, and they have basically normal ammo. I think it's fair, because +3 was definitely too much. Let's talk about Overwatch, because that's something else that's changing significantly. They are trying to develop 2 systems. You can choose one or the other. This basically changes the way Overwatch works, making it more reliable. It's not gonna happen that enemies or XCOM move 1 tile and avoid Overwatch because we are moving around the corner, a full cover corner. Covering fire's value definitely goes up significantly, 1 perk that you want to grab. The will system is changing a little bit. Now you will see that will loss happens a bit faster, but we don't lose will when we take damage. Sectopod will have less HP and will do less damage, which is nice. Same thing is happening to the mutants. M2 Priests, definitely something we need to talk about, because they will have Mind Shield instead of Fortress. They might then get Fortress at M3. Priest will no longer stasis a loss. Thank you very much, that was so stupid. Fewer snakes, definitely a good news. A few more random things. If you get shaken on one of your units now, it's not going to be healed once you send that unit out without taking injuries. It's going to take 20 to 24 days. This is good. It's going to be much faster to staff havens, especially at first. Then of course, once you get to 6, you will see that it's going to take a little bit longer. Also, restaffing havens that have been destroyed by Advent is going to be much simpler. If you play controller, well, this is the patch for you. Pre-stasis no longer works on large units. I had to think about this for a second. XCOM doesn't have large units. Of course, you could mind control a priest and then stasis a sectopod. If there were commanders out there doing that, honestly, they should be allowed to keep doing that, because you're a genius. I'd like to thank all these guys. They've taken a game that I love, and Long War 2, and they're making it much more polished. It's simply beautiful. Kudos to Palebrook. I know I'm probably destroying your name, and I'm sorry for that. Thanks to Grobob, Iridar, Musashi, Not So Lone Wolf, Internet Exploder, Favage, Shimred, Community Islander team, the people who helped with the translation, and every person who's worked even a minute on this. I just wanted to thank you and say that this game is amazing. If you are interested in following the development of Long War of the Chosen and maybe see some footage for yourself before you dive into it, please subscribe to the channel and make sure to not miss out on any content regarding Long War of the Chosen coming up soon. I don't think I need to tell you that I'm very excited about this new patch, and I'm looking forward to starting a new campaign. It's gonna be great. I hope you will join me. I'll see you soon in the first episode.